Hello, welcome to another episode of Chaotic Torture RC. This is another episode of Tech Tip Sunday, and what I'm going to explain today is something that if you do this at your own risk. I'm going to show you a couple procedures and precautions to take before doing this. But say you have a run the next morning and you may be splashing around in some water, but you don't have a whole lot around as far as waterproofing methods. This method here I'm going to show you is something that you can use in a pinch. It's not a permanent solution for everything. It works really good in servos because most cases are sealed in a servo, so you're okay there. I'm going to show you how to use grease for waterproofing, but you want to be sure that you use a marine grease and a dielectric grease, which means that it does not conduct electricity. And if you're ever uncertain if your grease will conduct or not, get a multimeter out, put it on the continuity tester. As you can hear, when I touch it, it's got continuity. What I'm going to be using is this stuff called Grim Reaper. It's speed grease. It's for fishing reels. I've been using it for a few years with really good success. I have it in one truck that I put on my bearings, and I have yet to have to change them. I've inspected them a couple times, and they still look almost as good as new as the day that I put them in the truck. But if you're uncertain if your grease is conductive or not, like I said, put your multimeter on the continuity test section of it. Put your points in the grease. If it does not show continuity, you're good. If it goes off or sets the alarm off, stop there. Don't use that grease. Go on to something else. And another thing to have handy when working with this grease, because it is very thick and gooey, keep paper towels handy when working with it. Now, a lot of people use plastic dip, electric tape, this, that, and the other. They're using conformal coatings and stuff like that to waterproof. Not everybody has access to that. And like I said, this is one of them situations, you know, you get a message from a buddy at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, hey man, we're going to go trailing tomorrow. You want to come with us? And you want to be sure that you're not going to ruin your receiver or whatever. So what I'm going to do here is I have a Tactic receiver that comes with a axial kit. Now most of your axial kits today have the splash proof boxes. I'm just using this as an example as a receiver, just so you know, not everybody uses their box. Not everybody has an RC that has the waterproof box. This will work for all receivers. What I'm going to do is on your back post, I'm going to apply a thin coat. You never want to apply this too thick. And the reason I say that this is a temporary solution, it'll coat it. It takes a long time for it to wear off. But if your box is not sealed, this will collect dirt and dust and debris over time. And it just becomes a really nasty mess to have to deal with on cleanup later down the road. So that's why I say, you know, as a permanent solution, if you ever want to get this stuff off, you can, there's several things that you can use to clean it. I've sprayed boards down with WD-40 to clean the stuff off, and then after that, let the WD-40 dry and then wipe it off with a towel, and you're good. But I've got a light coating on everything. I'll even put it on the post. It's not necessary to put it on the post, but I'll put a little bit on the post there. Main thing you want to do is be sure that you have your circuits coated. Which I do, and just so I don't continue to keep making a mess, I'm going to set this back in the receiver case now. If I can figure out which way this one goes back in the case. My hands are a little messy and goopy, and trying to do this on camera, I'm blind. Well, I thought I was going to put it back in the case. Let me look. Oh, I see. There's a little pinhole on this that lines up with something on the board on this one. Okay. So once I get that lined up, everything else should line up and it should pop in. Alright, there I have it. Now what I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, keep paper towels handy. Because working with the grease does get a little messy. But once you wipe the case down, the case will be okay. So I'm going to do that real quick. Because you'll either want to put your Velcro or double-sided tape or whatever you use. Okay, now I'm going to take my receiver plug. I'm going to go ahead and put a servo on here so that you can see that everything's working when I turn it on. Let me go ahead and put the lid on my marine grease here. Now I've already got a battery hooked up to my speed control, turn my radio on. So as you see, it's an old servo, kind of glitchy and grindy. And I've got a tub of water right here. I got the receiver fully submerged. Pull it out, submerge it again, splash it around, and since that's a waterproof servo, throw it in there. My ESC is waterproof too, I'll throw it in there. Everything completely underwater. No issues at all. Didn't hook a motor up to this, just no need to. The fact that you can see that it's operating the servo as it should. We'll scoop it around, splash some water in there. And like I said, this is primarily a temporary fix. If you had a case to put this in to just kind of protect it from the elements of the dust and dirt, it will last a long time. But the way it is open like this, if you start driving it, any dirt and debris that gets down in the cracks will start coating itself to the grease. It takes a very long time for this specific marine grease to wear off of product through usage. Like I said, I've used it to coat servo boards because I don't want to take and have to wrap my whole case with stuff, and I'm not a big fan of plasti dipping stuff. I've had issues with plasti dipping things not cooperating and failing. And I've even had issues from time to time with liquid electrical tape, with it developing tiny air pockets, and over time with heat buildup. That's another thing with the grease, it allows the heat to dissipate through the grease, where some of the other stuff doesn't allow so. But it's a messier option, and if things aren't sealed, like your servos are sealed, so it's okay in there. But very light thin coat. You never want to cake it on there, especially anything with your servo. If you're doing something on there, you never want to put a whole lot of anything on there because you don't want nothing to bind in the gears. But heat can dissipate through it. They make it for a lot of electrical products. A lot of people use dielectric greases on their tail lights for their cars to keep moisture out. They put it on the plug-in of the bulbs and put it in there. But a lot of your marine greases as well are non-conductive, and the marine greases will withstand the moisture even longer. I had one of the very first Axial AE1 ESCs that I'd done this to, because at the time I don't believe the Plasti-Dip was a big thing at the time, but I coated it with grease in the case and ran it probably 2 years, the whole existence of the truck, 2 to 3 years, with never an issue. I never changed the grease out, and it held up. But then again, I never overgeared the truck. I never ran it to where the ESC got hot as well, because I'm sure on some electronics, once you start getting it super hot, the grease may thin out in spots. But for simple things like boards and stuff, if you got a light board and you need to waterproof it in a pinch, this method works. Once again, if you're not sure if it's conductive, get a multimeter out, put it onto the continuity tester, put your prongs in there and check and see. If it is one that's conductive and you don't do that, as soon as you coat it and add power to it, you plug it in, you will fry everything. But as you see with this, it worked as it should. It's no issues. Still in the water. I'm actually using pretty hot water here too, just because I didn't want to get my hands cold during the filming of this. So anyways, I'm going to conclude that for this part of Tech Tip Sunday. If you do this at your own risk. I am not liable for any damage to electronics which you may cause. Always use safety with everything you do and proper precautions. It's just one of those tips that if you're in a pinch and need to waterproof, you can. Or if you don't want to use the other methods of waterproofing, using a marine grease does work. Like I said though, if you don't cover it with something, you do risk the chance of getting dirt and grime in it. Something you can do, if you want to waterproof your receiver this way but you're still uncertain about it, wrap it in a balloon and zip tie around the balloon, call it done. Then you're double protected on that, and you're good to go there. Back in the day, we used to just wrap things in balloons, but then from time to time you'd get a balloon that would get a tear or something in it, and moisture would come in there, and then you would start to have some electronic issues there. But coating your boards with a light coated grease does work. It's I don't want to say it's 100% fail-safe. I've never had any issues with it, as where some of the other methods I have had problems with. And most of your kits today come with Axial now supplies a marine type based grease with their kits, and I have tested it. It is non-conductive. You usually don't have very much left, but as you saw, it doesn't take much to do something like this. So I hope this helps somebody out there.